Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Larry Krueger. Title of the show today is Will the Niners win the Super Bowl? I definitely misspelled. I'm going to have to go back and fix that right now. But the reason I ask is Larry and I both predicted the Niners to go to the Super Bowl before the season with Trey Lance. Then Lance got hurt. Then Jimmy got hurt. And I don't know what Larry and I really expected, so I'd like to know what Larry thinks now because this is a different team. But I'm going to save that for later. Let's talk. It's gonna be before we just go straight to the Super Bowl. What do you think of this Washington defense in particular? Kyle called it a top 5 defense. How big of a test is it for the 49ers?
It didn't look great the other night. Montez Sweat is a force. So he's the guy you got to worry about. Mississippi State edge rusher, 6'5", 260, flies off the edge. He's terrific. So Montez Sweat is a major force for them. And they've got some other guys on defense. Obviously Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. They're a big time defense on paper. Bobby McClain was their leading tackler the other night. He had 11 tackles. So Cameron Curl's not a bad safety, but I think you can pick on him in coverage. I think their defense actually looked better the last couple of years than it looks this year. But it's a solid defense with a really, really talented front line for sure.
Yeah, it just seems like, they're giving up, 20 points per game? This is maybe the biggest test that Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense is going to face before the playoffs. It's not a playoff team per se. It might be, but it seems like a playoff defense with big, strong defensive linemen and, starting there. The one area of the Niners team that isn't as strong as it should be is the offensive line. And I wonder if Washington can at least, if they win the trenches, what is that? That's going to make things tough on Brock Purdy. He's going to put him in a position he hasn't been in yet.
I know, and it is a really good defensive line. Deron Payne's big and athletic. John Ridgway was the Arkansas kid that Dallas took, and then I think somehow Washington grabbed him off Dallas's practice squad. They call him the Vanilla Gorilla. He's just a monster. He's a monster against the run. And I think he's starting right now. And then you got Montez Sweat, and you got Jonathan Allen. And I would say Allen and Sweat are probably the best players on that front. Chase Young he's not playing, right? I think
he might come back this week. Kyle was asked about it, and he was like, I really hope he's smart and takes one more week to come back.
Exactly.
Possibly comes back. Yeah.
Yeah, because Chase Young's a beast. Chase Young's as good as it gets, too. So that would be a difference maker if you have Sweat and Chase Young. So to me, I see them as being dangerous on the other side of the ball as well because Jahan Dotson has got great ball skills for a rookie. And they've got Terry McLaurin and then Curtis Samuel in the slot when they go 3 wides. And then their big back from Bama, Brian Robinson, who got shot earlier this year. He's just a horse. I don't know if you saw some of those carries against the G-men, but he's just carrying guys 4 or 5 yards. He averaged 7.5 yards a carry last week. So
was he available when the Niners drafted Ty Davis-Price?
I think he was. I think he was a 3rd-round pick.
And I know they brought him in for a visit. Maybe they should have taken him.
He seems like he
fits. Seems like he fits the style that the Niners are trying to have on offense.
He's a horse, man. He's 6'1", 230, and he runs hard. And he can break
like Jordan
tackles.
Mason or bigger.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm not really even talking about Washington's offense because I really don't think a team led by Taylor Heineke is going to put up more than 13 points against this team, this defense. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I do. I think. If you told me that Washington got one more score and creeped over that, maybe, but they're not going to go they're not going to score in the mid-20s or 30s or anything like that. This is going to be a I like the 49ers to win this game comfortably. I think 49ers will score 24 to 28 points, maybe a little bit more, and I think Washington will probably score 17 or less. I think it's going to be maybe a 10-point victory, something like that.
Who do you think is going to be the guy on offense who steps up, with Debo out? Last week it was Kittle.
Yeah, last week it was definitely Kittle with the 2 touchdowns. I think Jawan Jennings is clearly the guy that's kind of the trusted guy. They go to him on just big plays. I thought that.
I wish they'd go to him more.
I know.
Not just the big plays.
Yeah, they targeted him 5 times last week. He caught 3 of the 5 balls.
He's
So
so
I mean,
good.
I like Jennings. I mean, Jennings will attack the ball. He's got ball skills. He's aggressive. He's big. He's not gonna give you that chunk yardage play usually, but he's so reliable. That third and 7 from their own 4-yard line in the second half when Brock hit him with a strike. I mean, that was one of the best plays of the game.
I'd like to see Brandon Ayuk step up too. Not that he hasn't stepped up, but I'd like to see him have a big time statement game where he goes for 150 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, I think it's in him, and I think that he doesn't get the opportunities because they run the ball so much, but I'd like to see him do it. It would be a nice statement to make before the playoffs start.
Yeah, I mean, they ran it 34 times last week, so he only got 4 targets. I'd like to see them double him, get twice as many targets. I mean, he should be getting 8 to 10 targets a game for the way he's playing right now.
Yeah,
So
and Jennings
that's
should
what I'd
get
like
5
to
to
see.
7. I agree with that.
I also like Ray McLeod, and even I know Danny Gray's a little dinged up, and I don't know what his status is going to be for this game, but I'd like to see in the last month McLeod and Gray get targeted a little bit just to make teams cognizant of the Niners' big time speed, their speed threats.
Caesar says Jimmy Ward needs to retire. A Niner looking great at nickel now. What would he cost to keep? What do you think he would cost to keep?
Oh, 12 million, something like that. I mean, I'd have to look up the numbers, but I would say it's probably, what does he make, 8 now, 9?
I think he's actually at 12 this year. I don't know what
is he at 12 this year?
But I think his cap number this year is 12. So about that.
Yeah, maybe 3-year deal. I mean, he's worth it, man. Whatever he's, however he grades out, he's worth more than that. I mean, he brings a physicality and a toughness and an edge and anger, whatever you want to call it, to this defense. It's unique. So he's one of the guys that absolutely don't want to get out of the room.
Yeah, and one of the things that's nice about Brock Purdy and young cheap quarterbacks in general is that they allow you to not have to make these business decisions. You gotta let Jimmy Ward go if you're paying $40 million a year to Kirk Cousins. But if you're paying $900,000 a year, your starting quarterback, maybe you can just keep everyone around. I mean, I think that's kind of the idea. So hopefully they can figure that out.
Well, I was just talking about that this week about, I don't know. I was linking it more to Trey Grant from the standpoint of, if they had a very affordable quarterback room with Purdy next year, they could maybe, even move Trey if they felt like Trey wasn't going to be the guy. And I think they could still get maybe a mid-first round pick. I really believe that. Now, a lot of people think, they can only get a 3rd or 4th round pick. I think supply and demand, you might want to check that again. I think he's going to be worth more. But could you imagine the Michael Mayer kid from Notre Dame, if, he's going to go, they say somewhere between 15 and 28. If you could pair that guy with Kittle and you have Ayuk and Debo and Christian McCaffrey and Mitchell and, you would have just a bevy of weapons that would just be crazy.
I'm not so sure you could get I like Trey Lance, but I'm not so sure you get a mid-first round pick for him right now because the Niners have turned him into Jordan Love. He hasn't played football in 3 years except for 4 or 5 games, and he still is extremely inexperienced. And now any team that might spend a mid-first on him, there's going to be some college quarterback who's available in the mid-first that played last year and is younger, and you know what I'm saying? So I
think Trey's
Niners.
It's all a guess. It's all guesswork, right? Because
if they could get the mid-first, you might want to think about it.
NFL people grade Trey, and where do NFL people grade the quarterbacks in this draft and the free agent market, and how's it all fit together? There's a lot of moving parts there, but I hear you. It might be optimistic to think that they could get a mid-first for Trey, but we'll see. Because what I've seen, the Niners projections, potentially, the top quarterbacks could go top 5, and then there's nobody left.
To your point, though, potentially the Niners could have a quarterback room of Brock Purdy making $1 million and someone else making $1 million, which is exactly what the Eagles have. I mean, Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew make about $4 million between them, and it's why they're freaking stacked at every single position. I'm not saying you trade Trey Lance, but he isn't exactly cheap. He's not expensive. But what's he make, like $8 million?
Well, yeah, he's still in a rookie deal, but I think it is right around $8 million.
3rd pick in the draft.
Yeah.
So
So it's not
he's an
nothing.
expensive backup. Yeah, he's an expensive backup. But again,
And
I don't know
also,
what you
I
get for him.
think, I mean, look, it would be so I mean, this is all projected on Purdy continuing to play well
Right.
and then winning playoff games and maybe winning in the NFC Championship game or playing so well in that game that you want to go forward with him. To me, that's kind of where this whole quarterback thing is going to get decided is if Purdy plays well in the playoffs and in the, they can somehow advance. Man, how do you look away from that? The whole purpose is to do exactly that.
Mark says, please do not move Trey. We need both these contracts upsides on this team. Niners injured quarterbacks are constant. Yeah, I think it's kind of tough to sell low. I think it's kind of tough to sell low on Trey, given all that you've invested and the fact that you really never gave him a chance and that you get your quarterbacks hurt all the time. That being said, you'd probably like to have an even cheaper backup than that. But still, between him and Purdy, that's a pretty cheap quarterback room. It's a pretty cheap quarterback room.
Very cheap.
Still, yeah, I mean, maybe Brock wouldn't be as good as he is if he didn't sit for as long as he did, says Matthew. I don't know. I guess we'll never know.
Or play. I mean, I go turn it the other way and say he wouldn't be the player that he is if he didn't play as much as he played at Iowa State.
Well, no, what he's saying is,
I know what he's saying. It's a pro. He sat this whole year. Right. Would he have been as good? I think there's a lot of complexities to this Shanahan offense that it's got to take some time to digest. I mean, he's a rookie.
Yeah. All right, let's get off that topic for now. The Niners opened the practice window for 2 defensive tackles today. Javon Kinlaw, their first-round pick from 2020, and Kalia Davis, who was like a 6th or 7th round pick this year, and he was injured, and he didn't even make it to the IR. He was on the NFI list, which means the injury happened before he was drafted. But now he's practicing 2. And it's interesting. The Niners have 2 IR spots that they can 2 players on IR they can bring back. One of them is going to be Elijah Mitchell. So the other one's either going to be Javon Kinlaw or Kalia Davis. Who do you think is more likely to get activated?
Well, I really like, first of all, I mean, Kinlaw is an absolute monster against the run, potentially. And he can absorb blockers and keep people off of Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. They drafted him in the high first round for a reason. Mm-hmm. He's enormously strong, but he also has chronic knee problems. So I guess I'd want to see how he fares, Grant, over the 3-week practice window opening in practice and see if I could test that knee a little bit. I would hate to activate one guy and then have Kinlaw be there for one game and then you lose him. But Kalia Davis,
that would be worst case scenario, right?
That's worst case scenario. But I mean, Kalia Davis is not just another guy or the other guy. He is big time. Like, this guy wore 22 in college. And if you watch the film, he is flying all over the field at 315, 320 pounds. He's really squat, like a DJ Jones kind of a build. But I mean, you're talking about a guy who just has incredible movement skills and motor and desire. I mean, he's fun to watch, man. Niner fans are going to love Kalia Davis if he's not diminished from that injury, because he moves like a linebacker. He used to play linebacker. He moves like a linebacker, and he's 315 pounds with a crazy motor.
They're saying they don't need an IR spot to activate Davis. True, because he's not on IR. He's on NFI. Still, the question remains, who do you think will be activated? Or both. They could both be activated. Do you think they both will get activated?
Possibly. I mean, Kalia Davis they're totally different players. One guy's a run guy and the other guy's a pass rusher.
Yeah. Davis
is a pass rusher. Kinlaw is not a pass rusher. Kinlaw's a run stuffer. So it's just a matter, but so's Ridgeway, and you lost Ridgeway as well. So maybe, but then you lost Givens as well.
Right.
And Givens is the pass rusher.
So these
two
could
really
replace,
going to be about those guys.
That. So like Kinlaw could replace Ridgeway.
Right.
Davis could replace Givens.
Right.
And now you got not exactly, but you're back to where you were. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And believe me, you wait until you see, I mean, you've seen Kinlaw, but wait till you see Davis. I mean, Davis he's an eye opener.
So it's possible both will be on the team making an impact in the playoffs. With Kinlaw, it seems to me that the Niners already clinched the division. You want him in the playoffs. No reason to be super aggressive playing him this week if you're not 100% sure he's ready. Because the whole idea is to have him for the entire playoffs, not just one playoff game. So You don't need him in the regular season. This should all be about getting him prepared for the playoffs, is what I think.
I would be really interested to know how Coach Eric and D'Amico have these guys graded. Like how do they have Ridgeway graded against Kinlaw? Against how do they have Hyder graded against Givens and some of the guys that have taken reps at those interior spots? I'd love to know what their pecking order is, because Kinlaw obviously has a high draft grade, but then Ridgeway is a versatile veteran who also has great strength at the point of attack. Givens was undrafted, but man, he's made tons of plays this year where he's flying all over the field. So, but then Hyder's got maybe the best motor of any of the guys on that front outside of Bosa. So they got, and then Armstead, I thought, really showed himself in this last game. We should talk about him too, because Armstead was penetrated and just, I thought he really kind of stepped his game up a little bit.
Mark Salas says, I know this is a sensitive conversation for you, but you were right about Kinlaw from the beginning. When he was drafted, your concern was his knee. Well, I mean, it was flagged at the combine. What's interesting is what the Niners say with him is they always say that this issue happened in a game in Dallas in 2020. So I guess what they would say is this is not necessarily, might be related to what happened before the draft, but this is something new. I guess it doesn't necessarily, I don't know.
It's related. What's more important is it's related to his fundamental problem as a professional, which is that he's strongest guy in the room, but he plays upright and he loses leverage and he exposes really long legs to hits on his knees. And that's why he keeps getting injured, because he's given a big target to those O linemen and they're cutting him at the knee, and he can only play a certain number of games and protect those knees. He needs, I talked to him about it. He understands it. He needs to play with leverage and with bent knees and low, and it's a challenge.
The coach says Niners are hoping against hope that Kinlaw can play. Even in his presser, he seemed adamant to make it clear that he's being held back, which is horse poop. Kyle said, we're trying our best to give him a chance. This is Kinlaw's last stand.
He looked healthy the other day. I saw him in the locker room, and I'm just saying, he had a smile on his face. He was sitting at somebody else's locker. They were chopping it up a little bit. He just seems like he's happy and healthy and ready to roll. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I mean, look, if the Niners are afraid that he can't give them more than 2, 3, 4 games in a row, well, make those games be the playoff games. That seems pretty smart, pretty obvious. Okay. Jalen Hurts injured his shoulder and is going to miss the next few weeks. The Eagles are the number 1 seed, and no one really thought the Niners could catch them. But now, technically, if the Eagles lose the rest of their games and the Niners win the rest of their games, they have the same record. Do you think that could happen? What are the odds?
Well, I know the Niners are going to win the rest of their games. Cardinals, Raiders, and Commanders. I think the Niners, it'll be disappointing to me if the Niners didn't run the table. Who do they have? They have the Dallas, and Dallas probably going to get them on Christmas Eve. That's in Dallas, I think.
Let me see. So they got Dallas in Dallas, and then New Orleans, and then the Giants at home. Both of those.
Well, that's interesting. New Orleans has got a good defense. I think the Eagles will win a game and be the 1 seed.
Yeah, I actually think that they can win with Minshew. The Eagles are really interesting to me. I feel like the Eagles and the Niners are built similarly in the sense that they're not looking for a quarterback to pay a bunch of money to supposedly carry them. They're looking to spend money on the rest of their roster and carry their quarterback. And I think both teams do it really well. I'm not saying they're carrying Jalen Hurts, but he doesn't make any money. They don't pay him. Gardner Minshew makes more than Jalen Hurts, and it's why their offensive line is so good and their defensive line is so good, and the whole team is so good. Really, no one can really match the Niners and the Eagles rosters. The only teams that are no one can match them, but the teams that maybe
best
can
in the
beat
NFC
them,
for sure.
Yeah, the teams that might be able to beat those two teams are the teams with the Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks in the AFC, of course. But if you can't get one of those quarterbacks, it's probably best to do what the Niners and the Eagles do. And I think the Eagles are essentially built to win with Minshew the way the Niners are built to win with Purdy. I'm just saying.
Both GMs deserve a ton of credit. Lynch for picking up McCaffrey and for having this amazing draft this last year, and Purdy in the last round, things like that. Howie Roseman seat trading for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from the Saints at the beginning of the year, added an impact safety on the back end. The drafting, Javon Hargrave, Milton Williams, they got all kinds of guys. Yeah, no, the Eagles and the Niners have done it right personnel-wise. Those are really good rosters, and you totally handicapped it right because that and the AFC, they got the Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That's probably why they'll be favored in the Super Bowl. But the Niners and the Eagles are easily the two deepest teams in the NFC.
Absolutely. So and one thing I like about the Eagles that I think the Niners should aspire to is their offensive line. They do not mess around on their offensive line. It's the best in the league. They're really good at drafting, developing it, and I feel like there's no reason the Niners can't do that either. They have a great defensive line, but, nothing against Jake Brendel, who's actually doing pretty well this year. But they could do better. They could do better. Burford has promise. He's young. Banks looks good. Man, McGlinchey, they got to find a better right tackle than McGlinchey. McGlinchey would never play for the Eagles. Never play for the Eagles. So I just think the Niners could step it up a little bit. Another thing that's scary about the Eagles, I think they have a top 5 pick next year.
And they've got good depth. The guy in the draft that everybody wanted the Niners to grab from Nebraska, Cam Jurgens, they grabbed him. He's sitting behind Kelsey.
That's right.
But they swung and missed on Andre Dillard, the Washington State kid, because they drafted him in the first round to play left tackle, and they're starting Jordan Mailata, who's monstrous and talented in his own right. But Philly's got the big question to me is, can the 49er D-line put enough pressure on, Hurts or Minshew in this game in Philly behind that Eagles outstanding O-line so that the Hafongas and the Gibsons don't get burnt in coverage by Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown? That to me is the whole NFC in a nutshell.
In a sense, like the Eagles match up better than any team in the league with the Niners' full-strength offense because the Eagles have the best offensive line in the league. Kansas City has a very good one too. But this Eagles offensive line is great, and it's going to be interesting to see if these teams ever play each other, how that matchup goes. I think the Eagles are a little bit better than the Niners. But
I think they're a little bit better too. But their O-line, I think, is a little bit better than the Niner D-line. But the Niner D-line is so deep that if the Niner D-line comes at you in waves, and if they can discover a few more players, maybe a Kinlaw, maybe a Kalia Davis, I think, the Niner D-line is maybe a player away from just being, too much for everybody. So
that's what I was going to say. If the Eagles can't stop them, then they're unstoppable.
Yeah, I know.
The coach says Gardner can deliver the ball more accurately and efficiently than Jalen Hurts. What he gives up in athleticism, he covers it with way better quarterback play than Jalen. Don't sleep on him. I'm not sleeping on him. I actually think that they can win quite easily with him. Their team is so good. They're all the way over there on the East Coast, but their team is really good. That trade for A.J. Brown was really smart.
You know what
the Titans were thinking.
Another one, Grant, what are you rooting for here? Are you rooting for Gardner Minshew to play poorly so they're a one-quarterback team? I'm actually rooting for Gardner Minshew to play well because I've been in that town. If Gardner Minshew plays well, they got sports radio up the kazoo. They'll make themselves sick with Minshew or Hurts, despite the fact that, just for the opportunity to do it, not because it makes sense, not because anybody really believes it, just because why the hell not, right? And then I think that would turn into a beautiful distraction. And if you could get the Eagles in January, Grant, with Hurts with a bum shoulder in the middle of a city that's in some, Twitter uproar over the quarterbacks, that might be the Niners' best chance to go in there and win.
See, I'm rooting for Gardner Minshew to fall on his face and lose all the remaining games because if it's all the same, I'd rather not fly to Philly in January.
Dallas could beat them.
Yeah. It's always sunny in Philadelphia, but I'd rather not go to Philadelphia in January. It's a trek and it'll be cold, and I like hanging out at home. So, but I also like traveling. I'm just saying, Gardner, you could lose. Let me ask you. Okay, so here's the question of the show. Do you think the 49ers will win the Super Bowl this year with Brock Purdy? You're the biggest proponent of Brock Purdy. You saw him. You were on to him first, And as someone who is driving the Brock Purdy train, what do you think? Is
Right.
this going to go all the way?
Wow. I mean, the more I watch it, the more I think that even though I believed in him, that I didn't believe enough as I needed to believe. I mean, I did 2 or 3 interviews with him. If I really believed, I would have done like 5 interviews with him.
Right, of course. No one's, and that's why this story's so great. Like, no one saw this coming.
No,
Are you
I
kidding?
mean,
He's making it look easy. He's bored out there.
There's so much substance to Brock Purdy. That's the other part about this that's so enjoyable, is that it's not flash in the pan or wow, he's hot, or I mean, there's I'm not going to say who it was, but there was a beat writer who bet me $1 that he wouldn't make the team over Nate Sudfeld.
I think I know who it was.
And he harassed me and said, "You said it was a lock." I said, "It is a lock." He said, "It's a lock." Yes, it's a lock. I want my $1. No, but no, I mean,
it wasn't me.
There were people who thought that he was so bad that he would get cut, and that they would go with Sudfeld not that long ago. So look where he's at now. I would say that the more I watch him, the more I think he's got specials traits. I mean, that the throw. I mean, he puts the ball on the money more times than not. He's got good numbers on the deep balls. He keeps his legs under him, so he throws with a solid base a lot more than you would think. And he's accurate for the most part. I think he sees it pre-snap. Kyle said something that I know that you had to have seen, Grant, when he said, I forget what the question was, but he said something to the effect of like, I can call the game the way I want to, or I can call everything I want to call with him, or something to the effect of like the entire arsenal is open with this quarterback. Yep. Without saying it, without ripping the other guys. Yes. He just kind of complimented this guy. But I mean, when your head coach says that he's got a full arsenal, he can do anything with you, and that you have more poise than any rookie he's ever seen. Yeah. And then you got guys like Dante Whitner and Bill Romanowski who know a little thing or two about football. And both of them, Romo practiced against Joe Montana and went on a podcast this week and said he reminds him of Joe Montana. And Romo's
I
really
feel the same.
intelligent.
I said it first. I said it before Bill Romanowski.
You said Joe Montana?
He reminds me of Joe Montana very much.
What does your dad say?
Joe's a little before my time. He didn't disagree.
Does he not buy into it?
No,
does he buy into
it? He's quite intrigued. I'm not saying he's the next Joe Montana, but I mean,
there's a lot of Montana traits.
The calmness, the poise, the foot quickness, the accuracy.
He's got a
lack of arm strength
side too.
The lack of arm strength. I'm just saying, like you say, hey, he's got a really weak arm. Not a weaker arm than Joe. You can't write him off because of his arm strength. So, and then when you start going through the similarities between him and Joe, it's like, well, wow. And right now, to me, he's looking like a poor man's Joe. And if he wins the Super Bowl, he won't be a poor man's Joe.
I mean, what a story that it would be. That's in Arizona. He's from Arizona. That's
a good point.
The kid. I mean, it's really an amazing story, but he's more. I might as well stick with it. I mean, I do think it's possible. It's what's the date today? The 20th of December. I think it's possible that the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl in Brock Purdy's backyard with Brock Purdy at quarterback.
Feels like destiny, right? There's a little bit of weirdness going on here. It's destiny.
In some ways, Grant, too, it would give Kyle Shanahan a forever seat at the discussion of the most amazing discussion of all time when it comes to his category, which is who's the greatest coach of all time? Because every bar room from now on, they'll go Lombardi, Walsh, Belichick. Wait a second.
Hold on.
Somebody's going to say,
hold on.
But Kyle Shanahan in 2023 won a Super Bowl with his third string quarterback. That makes him the best of all time. Believe me, that's going to happen.
It could.
If you know that Kyle, somebody will be making that argument in bars for the next 50 years if Purdy and the Niners win the Super Bowl this year.
He's going to have to win more than one Super Bowl to become the best head coach of all time. But we don't need to go down that hypothetical road.
I'm not saying it's fact.
Go there, but no, I feel you.
You're going to hear it in bars.
People will say it. It'll piss me off, and I'll be sitting there just having a nice time drinking my drink with my wife, being like, hold on! No! Anyway, no. I do think they could win the Super Bowl. I think they have a better chance now with Brock than they had with Jimmy, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
I really think Philly's the truth. And I think Philly's I think they have a better roster than the Niners. Like, their offensive line is what the Niners' offensive line should be. Sean's over here saying that there's a noticeable philosophical difference between the Niners and the Seahawks and the Eagles. The Niners prioritize D-line. Philly prioritizes O-line. Actually, Philly spends a bunch on their D-line too. They prioritize the trenches. The Niners spend a bunch of money on linebackers and running backs, which make them a little bit unique. Those are two positions that most teams don't spend on. The Niners do, and it works out for them. It does. But, yeah, I think Philly's the truth, and that's going to be tough to go and beat them. And then Buffalo is – I know Josh Allen's expensive, but not too expensive yet. That defense is really good. Yeah. And then the Kansas City destroyed the Niners. So those three teams, I still wonder how the Niners match up. But any one other than those three teams, the Niners are better than.
Yeah. I mean – Kansas City, I don't know what to say about Kansas City anymore. I mean, Mahomes, Reed, Chris Jones. Chris Jones is like Mean Joe Green and Aaron Donald all rolled into one against the Niners. And
it's true.
This last game, Willie Gay, Bolton, Snead. I mean, you name it. They got like 7 impact guys on their defense.
And as great as Mahomes is, Kelsey's like damn near just as good. He's so uncoverable.
Kelsey, you couldn't stay within a country mile of guys like Hardman, and they just got a ton of weapons, and they got Mahomes. So I'm kind of hoping, if you're a Niner fan, I think you got to hope that maybe Dallas knocks off Philly, because you can handle Dallas. Yeah. I mean, Dallas, you can run on Dallas, and the Niners can run up and down the field on Dallas, and then Prescott will turn it over, and the Niners will blow Dallas out. But in the AFC, I think
ideally you don't have to face any of those three teams, and somehow you get Dallas and Minnesota and Cincinnati. That's the ideal path for the 49ers. It could happen.
Maybe Buffalo, because Buffalo's run game's not great. And if you could –
it's Josh Allen.
Yeah.
It's Josh Allen. But the thing about that scares me is the Niners' Achilles heel on defense is the quarterback scramble on 3rd and long. So that's Josh Allen.
He has a presence about him that's like you feel like he's going to win the games he's in.
Yeah, so that one scares me a little bit. I mean, it's like he's almost as good as Mahomes, if not as good, and he has a defense. Mahomes does not have a defense. Not really.
What would be the spread in the Super Bowl if it was Niners-Bills or Niners-Chiefs? What do you think the spread would be?
Well, the Niners would be underdogs because of the Purdy factor.
Right.
Yeah. So, 3, 4, 5 points.
What an incredible story that would be if Brock Purdy as an underdog beat one of those quarterbacks in his backyard as a rookie, as Mr. Irrelevant.
It would be the greatest story of all time.
It was a Disney movie. Oh,
yeah, it's a Disney movie. Like straight, immediately. Please advertise Papa Cohn's new book when complete. I will. I'm really proud of him. He's back doing his thing. He's back in the saddle. Brock can roll out and throw. It's true.
The biggest attribute, I should mention this, I think, in the Purdy game is that a major fundamental of Shanahan's offense, if it's really going full tilt, is the bootleg game. Mm-hmm. If you have the run game going and you got a quarterback who can run the bootleg game with intelligence and moxie, and he slid and had the ball forward, the way Russell Wilson could do it. Think of Marshawn running it, and then how incredible they were with Marshawn and Russell. If they could run it with McCaffrey and Mitchell, and then you've got Purdy running the bootleg game and the bootleg pass, the bootleg runs, it's just, I think that's where the Niners could be incredible with Purdy. Is he's amazing in that bootleg game.
Yeah, and not just the bootleg, but play action. Okay? Play action is something that Jimmy Garoppolo was never quite fond of. He wanted to be in the shotgun and throw. Brock Purdy's cool with play action. Let me tell you something. So far on play action this year, Brock Purdy is 14 of 17 for 116 yards and a touchdown with a quarterback rating of 114. Play action it's a nice compliment for a team that runs the ball. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo ever understood this, but if you run the ball, play faking works. And damn, there are some wide open people down the field that Brock Purdy's hitting just because he's willing to turn his back to the defense.
And the rhythm that he plays in the play action is unbelievable. I mean, he plays in like a beautiful rhythm with the play fakes and when he gets to the top of the drop and I mean, he's in full rhythm, and those stats reveal it. Wow.
Yep. Sean says, I didn't know. I just occurred to me, you might want to look up Brock Purdy's numbers with play action, because I think we've seen it. I mean, it's available. It's open. They're calling it. He's hitting it.
Yeah.
Why are they wide open? Because teams are selling out to stop the run, and they're used to Jimmy Garoppolo not making them pay for it. Well, here you go. If they can get to the Super Bowl healthy, they'll win. Well,
I agree with that. I think that's
they
a
won't
major...
get to the Super Bowl healthy. There's always going to be injuries, and
if they can, though, watch
but
the heck
won't.
out.
But yeah, they can. It's true. The coach says Philly's O-line can't run what we do, Grant. They run gap scheme, body on body. It's easier to shop for those trophy O-linemen. They're very big, which I believe will hurt them against us if we play. We run outside zone athletes. Nah, the outside zone this year, that's not working. The Niners aren't really running very well from under center. It's what they want to do, but really the Niners are 14th in yards per attempt, and the Eagles freaking are killing it on the ground because of Hurts, because of that zone read.
But let's, and I brought this up early in the year. I said, man, the Hurts looks great. Eagles look great. Let's see if a team can run their quarterback as much as the Eagles have this year
and not get them hurt
to December and late December and early January when they play the playoffs with a quarterback ready to roll. After watching Gibson bounce on Hurts' right shoulder, I'd be shocked if we see him Sunday, and I count the number of weeks before he looks like the player he was. I bet you it's a number of weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure they can win with Minshew, but their run game won't look the same. So, good call, Coach. Thank you for he's very generous.
Coach is awesome.
And I'm not saying that like the Niners, he's right. They have a different style of offensive lineman, Philly and the Niners. The Niners want athletes, of course. But still, like, they got Trent Williams, first-round pick, Aaron Banks, second-round pick. Like, see, if you have Brock Purdy and another young quarterback, you have money to blow. Spend it on your right tackle. Don't just bring back Mike McGlinchey next year and say he's the best we could do. Go get Caleb McGarry, who's way better than Mike McGlinchey, and he'll be a free agent. I'm just saying. And, Jake Brendel, maybe you could bring him back, too. He's actually been all right this year, but you might want to get someone. You might want to get an upgrade. You could. I think Burford's got potential.
I really like Poe and Zakel as developmental guys for next year. I think those guys are both keepers.
I can't pronounce that, but thank you.
Christian Gamino?
Sure. I can pronounce that, but I won't. Eagles have 55 sacks. Niners have 39. Eagles pass defense allows under 65 completion. Niners pass D allows above 65. Don't underestimate the Cowboys, Larry. The Cowboys? You talk about Philly. Anyway,
I know, but because I was saying the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys. Cowboys just give up 7 yards a carry to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And Dak Prescott is turning the ball over at the highest rate in the entire league. I feel pretty good.
It's true. Also, Niners' Achilles heel is mobile quarterbacks. True. It's true.
Niners pass rush. Sorry to interrupt. Niners pass rush this year. When they go 4D end alignment, they provide a lot of speed. That's the greatest part of the Niner front right now. They're a little thin at tackle, but they got five contributing defensive ends.
Yeah, I just feel like the way they rush the quarterback, especially on third down, creates so many scramble lanes. It's a wide 9, but it's like an overloaded 3-by-1 front, and the one guy on the one side is always going to scream upfield. It's easy to like scramble out that way, and then the other way, a lot of times they vacate the A gap. So if that's how you want to rush the quarterback, that's fine. But maybe like have a quarterback spy, or you have to have some plan to keep the quarterback from running for 15 yards on 3rd and 13. I don't know what it is, but it seems to me if you know the quarterback's a threat like that, you can't be rushing the quarterback with reckless abandon. You have to have someone controlling the A-gap, and you have to tell your defensive ends never, ever, ever rush past the quarterback, because once you do, he's running by you for a first down.
Yeah, it's got to be coordinated. They did a good job, I thought, in the Seattle game against their quarterback. I mean, I thought Geno was hemmed in most of the day. He had that one run, but I thought they did a really good job in this game of not giving Geno lanes.
Yeah, except for that one third down that he got the 18 yards on. And I'm thinking, like that better not happen in the playoffs. Fix it before you got 3 weeks. Mark says, is the Niners D better or the same since playing KC? Healthier. Healthier.
Well,
Armstead's back.
I mean, I think the
Yeah.
KC thing was just an eye opener. It's like
Yeah.
you just got torched. I mean, the Niners zone. I mean, he picked him apart. He just absolutely picked him apart.
Yeah. Also, you saw what a good offensive line. I mean, it neutralized the Niners' pass rush, and now you have the greatest quarterback ever, maybe, just picking you apart.
And the importance of tackling was emphasized in that game because McKinnon gutted them on the biggest play of the game, and the tackling and the angles were horrible. And once you get that on film, man, I'm sure that's an easy motivator.
The Niners couldn't stop the jet sweep. How many touchdowns did they give up on a freaking jet sweep?
Hardman was a nightmare.
Niner Dog says Brock compared to Joe Montana, foolishness.
We hear you.
Hey, who had more wins as a rookie, Brock or Joe?
If we just take the names out, call them QB1 and QB2, and then just start comparing traits. And then, because if you do say Purdy and compare him to the great Joe Montana, I get it. Believe me, I understand how it sounds. We all do.
Right. Trust BP in the playoffs. Look at him versus Oklahoma. Okay, I will.
Sooners get him.
All right. Speaking of Brock Purdy, it seems like for a while everyone was looking for the next Josh Allen. That guy who, didn't really have much experience, but he had raw tools and wasn't that accurate, but you could coach him up, and you're going to turn him into the next Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, it seems like a lot of teams have tried and failed, including the 49ers maybe. Anyway, now all of a sudden there's a new style of quarterback out there. The guy who's right under your nose, who's been playing a ton of football, who's not that physically gifted, but he's experienced and poised and mature. Is our team suddenly going to be like flipping what they look for in quarterbacks and going to be looking for like the finished product all of a sudden?
You know who absolutely is sitting in his dorm room doing freaking cartwheels over Brock Purdy is Jake Haener for Fresno State.
Yes.
Because he's a guy who played a lot of college football.
I'm not too old.
Yeah,
I'm what they're looking for.
Jake Haener, he's 6'1". That's plenty big. I'm an inch taller than Brock. No, I think it comes down to Brock you've always needed to have a feel. The question is, are you born with it or is it coached into you? And for every Joe Montana who it almost seemed like he was born with it, going back to Ringo High School, Notre Dame, some of the comebacks, it still needed to be refined by Walsh. I get the feeling like Steve Young is more of a pure athlete who maybe he had to be coached up on some of the nuances, but they refined Steve. I think it can be done both ways. You can have the raw athletic tools if you're totally wed to the process, but you have to be coached up. But I think ultimately what you're coaching them is feel. And I think Brock clearly, since he's a rookie, he's barely even been in the building for very long. He brought a lot of that feel with him when he came out of Iowa State. So,
but isn't feel a function of experience?
No
How
question.
do you develop feel if you don't play?
Right. Totally. You have to play. And
you have to play.
But I mean,
so
I don't know how
experience
much
is an asset.
I mean, Bill Parcells, Grant, was a believer.
Right.
They say in like you had to have 40 to 45 college
Damn
starts,
right.
And otherwise not interested.
Deal breaker.
That was a belief. That was a belief that you needed a lot of experience.
So he would have liked Brock Purdy. I'm sure Brock Purdy would have satisfied his requirements. I got another quarterback that I like in the Brock Purdy mold. About Max, what's his name? Max Duggan from TCU. I don't know how you pronounce his name.
Duggan.
Duggan.
For Sonny Dykes.
Yeah. Sonny Dykes, dude.
It's
but
crazy.
I mean, he's a four-year starter.
He's a good quarterback, and he's resourceful. But, man, I bet them, and he runs up and down the field, and they get to the goal line, and instead of going quarterback sneak, they go with these slow, delayed handoff, and it got stuffed in the backfield, and they wound up losing the game and costing themselves a chance. Probably at the national championship. No, but I mean he's not the most impressive physical guy. He can run a little bit. He's kind of a gamer, but a lot of people like him. I'd have to watch more of him.
Who is the next Brock Purdy? Who is the next Brock Purdy?
Exactly.
Do you know? It's got to be this guy. No, I don't know.
A lot of people like him.
Is it Dorian Thompson-Robinson? 4-year starter.
DTR.
4-year starter. DTR.
You catch DTR on the wrong day, baby. He'll light you up.
DTR. Let me say something about DTR. And I'm just a straight up UCLA homer who always overvalues UCLA players. he never really had receivers at UCLA. It was him and Charbonnet, and they made plays.
I like
But
Charbonnet.
maybe if you put DTR on a team like the Niners, you gave him Debo and Ayuk, I bet he looked good. I'm just saying, I think the Niners should draft a quarterback this year because so far, all of a sudden, they look like they know what they're doing drafting quarterbacks. You can't have enough good young ones.
Quarterback every year.
Yeah, draft a quarterback every year. DTR, baby. He's different than Brock, but he's the same.
I mean,
He's
I guarantee
experienced.
you this.
You want experience. All of a sudden, you're looking for experience because Brock's poise and all that stuff. I'd like to know what Trey would look like if he had 4 years of college experience. That's the biggest, not tragedy. It's sports, but it's just it sucks. I'd love to know what Trey would be like at 22, 23 if he had been playing the last 7 years. He's had a lot of bad luck.
That's a great question. And how would Trey be if he just played the entire season this year?
Yeah, I'd love to know. Man, it's too bad. Rob Watson says Montana won the Natty at Notre Dame. He was a tier 1 quarterback. He didn't hang passes in the air for 5 seconds either. For all the lack of arm strength talk, Montana's arm was still way stronger than Brock's. Was it? All right. Was it?
I don't. Did Montana win the national? No, I don't think he won the national title. By the way.
Yeah, that's all way before my time. So I'll take your guys' word for it.
I would say no, he did not win the national title.
We're gonna lose to the Commanders. Pete Carroll gonna make DTR look great next year. He's gonna take DTR. Come playoffs, quarterbacks got to elevate the team. Can BP do that? Do they have to elevate the team? Did Nick Foles elevate the team? I don't know. It seems like the Niners and Eagles again. They want to elevate the quarterback, and I think there's something to that. I mean, if you could look at Brock Purdy. He's got the best defense, the best weapons, not the best offensive line, but everything else.
He's a perfect game manager in some ways because he's got a little. He takes. It's not like he doesn't take chances. He's not Alex Smith. Alex Smith threw all these passes underneath. This guy takes some chances. He actually kind of believes in himself in kind of a cocky way. He tries to squeeze it into these tight windows. I think,
but he legitimately manages the game extremely well.
Oh, I mean, I'll say this:
calling him a good game manager is not a knock on him. He's a good game manager.
I'll say this: the one thing I absolutely know that he's way better than Trey or Jimmy, and he's shown it already, is situational football at the end of games. If the Niners get a lead and Brock Purdy's in there, he's going to bleed the clock, and he's going to complete that one pass for the first down that ices the game. I mean, that's what he's got great competitive fire, which is a really underrated trait of a quarterback. Helps you finish.
Against bad teams, he's trash, meaning Brock. I don't think he's trash, man. Look, I'm not saying the Niners should give him like a $500 million contract in 3 years and that he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But on this team, with his salary and this defense, I think he's going to be good enough to get to the NFC Championship game. I do.
And what's his bad teams? What's against bad teams? I thought he just beat Miami and Seattle in their place. That's maybe the toughest road venue and one of the most explosive offenses in the game.
I mean, there aren't that many great teams, but he just beat 3 playoff contenders.
Yeah.
Is this the best Niners defense you two covered? Covered? Yes.
Well, is it better than the Harbaugh defenses? Where do you put it? The rules. See, the rules have changed.
They're giving up 15 points per game, Larry.
Yeah, but I mean, those 15. Harbaugh defenses moved back. I mean, what they did to the New York Giants, I don't know. I mean, to me, those Harbaugh defenses they hit the crap out of you. And you had the Cowboy and Alden up front. You had Willis and Bowman. I mean, I would say this group's a little bit better on the back 7 than that group, but that group may have been better up front.
Callie Tremor says, spread the ball around, rotate the running backs, and stick to what works the entire game, not just during the first quarter. If creative and consistent, also healthy, we can win the Super Bowl. Both of you have great content, continued success. Thank you, Callie.
Thank you.
Well, I think we got it figured out the rest of the whole entire season. The Niners got it. They're going to win the Super Bowl if certain things go their way, and they listen to Larry and I, as always. And I think they've been. How else do you explain the 7-game winning streak? I think we've been doing a good job. So certainly Larry has. Larry doesn't get enough credit. Thanks for watching.
I agree.
Everyone.
I should get a lot more credit for the Purdy thing. I mean, come on, everybody.
Hell yeah.
Give me some
Absolutely.
love.
Give him some love. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow. The Niners have another practice This is the for real one, the one in pads, the one where we'll see who's out there. So
I'm going. What time's practice? 11.
let me tell you real quick.
I
This
think
is
the
important.
locker room's open at 3. I think something like that. But
People
what time's
need to
practice?
know.
I'm gonna have to go to practice tomorrow.
Yeah, you gotta go. So we got 12:58 practice,
Nice.
2:45. We got D'Amico. Yes, it's an all dayer. I'll see you there at practice. 12:45.
Most importantly, was there anything? What was for lunch in the media room? I mean,
Taco
what I missed-
Tuesdays.
Oh, taco.
And it was good. Can arm strength be built now in days off season? I think you can absolutely add to arm strength. Yes, in a lot of ways. Yes.
Yeah, it's mechanics.
Yes, it's mechanics. Mark Salas says if you don't have arm strength, it's about anticipation and trust. Montana had that trust and anticipation with his receivers. Montana worked with his receivers to be where they need to be. Brock ditto. Also, you can improve arm strength incrementally.
That Montana guy had some pretty good receivers. I remember it was a guy named Taylor, a guy named Rice. Those guys are
Craig.
those guys are all right.
Pretty good. Jones. Yeah, they're all pretty good. Guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.